we're talking about revolt or rebellion, what's going on in Baltimore. How are things changing or not changing? How is it that the changing expectations produce changing behavior? Yesterday, both Mayor Rawlings Blake and the president used the word thug. Mayor Rawlings Blake has now apologized for using that word. But I'd like to play a couple of clips that I'm labeling white privilege on parade, where a couple of news reporters get essentially schooled on this. The first is Erin Burnett. She's talking to, I don't have a clip sheet on this. Who is she talking to? Councilman Stokes, who is African-American. And he is going to use the N-word in this clip, and I'm going to let it go because he's African-American and he's telling his truth. But here's the conversation that was had on CNN yesterday about this whole, oh, yeah, let's just call these guys thugs thing.
There were people I saw on Twitter saying, why would you call them thugs? Then they're not going to listen to you. President Obama also called the protesters, in his words today, quote unquote, criminals and thugs. He also carefully chose to use that word. Isn't it the right word?
No, of course it's not the right word to call our children thugs. These are children who have been set aside, marginalized, who have not been engaged by us. No, we don't have to call them thugs.
But how does that justify what they did? I mean, that's a sense of right from wrong. They know it's wrong to steal and burn down a CVS and an old person's home. I mean, come on.
Come on. So calling them thugs, just call them niggers. Just call them niggers. No, we don't have to call them by names such as that. We don't have to do that. That is exactly what we've sent them to. No, when you say come on what? You would call your child a thug if they should do something that would not be what you would expect them to do.
In fact, apropos, and that's City Councilman Carl Stokes, African-American member of the Baltimore City Council. And, you know, you wouldn't call your kids thugs. Rand Paul yesterday comes out and he's speaking of, I don't know if he used the word thugs, but he did. He repeatedly called what was going on in Baltimore thuggery and thievery. He said, I'm very sympathetic to the plight of the police on this. He was asked, why is this happening? He says, the breakdown of the family structure, the lack of fathers. This is the guy whose 22-year-old son, William Hilton Paul, last week earlier this month, crashed his car into an occupied car an unoccupied car. No, it was occupied after driving drunk. Quote, the third time that William Paul has had a run-in with a law involving alcohol. Thug? No, he's white. This is why, I'm saying this is white privilege on parade. And why is it that whenever the press refers to the looting or the riots or whatever words they're using in Baltimore, they don't end the sentence with in riots, in protest of the police murder of a young black man, a young, well, I guess he had a knife in his pocket. I was going to say unarmed, but you get the point. Why don't they say that? Well, because, hey, we've got a brand new story. We don't have to talk about police brutality anymore. We can talk about people setting CVS on fire. Okay, so this is how black folks in Baltimore are responding. 10,000 people in the street marching peacefully day after day after day. It gets no coverage. And in fact, the day of the, quote, riots, end quote, over 10,000 people peacefully marching, no coverage. Get a couple of hundred people burning down a building. It's hysterical coverage. Well, how would white people deal with that? I mean, setting aside the 10 major riots in the last decade that white people have engaged in, where cars were turned over, property was destroyed, the stores were smashed, all kinds of stuff, and that all had to do with sports. But how historically would white people respond to their expectations not being met, to being oppressed by a political power structure that does not represent them? Well, let me read to you what one of those white people said back in the day when they decided to go from having a rebellion and turn it into a revolution. He said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as it shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all evidence has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But, this is the white guys speaking in 1776, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces shows a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Now, this is not a protest against, Mayor Rawlings Blake. This is a protest against an national, institutionalized racist system in this country.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-536-2370.
And white people all over this country, firmly and comfortably and happily embraced in their white privilege, are clueless. We'll be back.